So our game is working okay. When we run our game, we see our enemy objects come down from the sky. So our next step, let's try to get our player to be able to respond to our keyboard or to our mouse so that he can move back and forth to avoid being hit by the enemies. So we'll go to our AS file and we're going to add an event listener. Remember that we add the event listeners to our constructor code. Our constructor code is the code that's run when we start our game. And we'll add an event listener here to listen for any mouse movements. So when we move our mouse to the left, we want our player to move to the left, and when we move our mouse to the right, we'll make our player move to the right. So remember how an event listener is created. You use the add event listener method. Its first argument is what you're listening for, so we're going to listen for a mouse event, the mouse move event. And then when that event happens, or when that event is fired, then we're going to go to this function and run it. So we'll need to write this function now. So this function is going to look very much like this function, so I'm going to copy this function header to write my new function. Now remember that you want to write your function outside of any other function and before the end of your class. So that's why it was a good idea to label these ending curly brackets, so we know where to put our new function. We'll put our new function right here. Now we want the new function to be named onMouseMoved, so double click, Control C, double click, Control V, and then our event is going to be a mouse move event, our mouse event. So make sure to change this to mouse event. Now one other thing that we'll need to add, since we're going to use this mouse event, is we'll come up to the top of our code here and we need to add an import statement so that we are able to use this code. So as you start typing it, if you have code complete on, it'll spell it for you. flash.events.mouseEvent. We know that's the name of the class we want because we see that class name right here. Alright, now let's create our onMouseMoved function. We need to write the body of this function so that it will make our player move left and right. So we're going to create an if statement, and we're going to use this mouse event variable E and check where the mouse is moving on the screen. So E is our parameter and it's of type mouse event. So when I type the letter E, or the variable E, and I put a dot, here's all of the mouse event functions that I have access to. So I need to look in here for a function that's going to help me figure out where on the stage our mouse has moved. And here's a parameter right here called stage X that we can use. If I wanted to figure out more about this stage X variable, I could go online and I could type in AS3 ActionScript 3, and I could type in mouse event onMouseMove, and most likely the first thing that'll come up will be my API, my Application Programming Interface reference. These are all the directions that go along with the ActionScript programming code. And I could look down here, and here's all my public properties. And here's my local X. When mouse locking is disabled, the horizontal coordinate at which this event occurred relative to the containing sprite. Not what I need. Here's a stage X, the horizontal coordinate at which the event occurred in global stage coordinates. So yes, this is what I need. This will tell me where the mouse has moved in accordance to my stage. So now I know that this variable here will give me what I need. We can take a look at this variable and you can test this variable to see what his value is. Let's go ahead and trace him. When you trace your variable, you're printing it to the console down here at the bottom when you run your code. So we can add some text in here. We can say trace our eStage X value. So I'm going to create a string right here and then print out the e.stagex variable. So now when I run my code, I can see what my e.stagex variable is. And I can see that he's relating to where my mouse is moving on my screen. So now I'd like to use this variable in an if statement. So I'll comment out this code. Now let's write our logic. We'll say if our e.stagex variable, so where our mouse is moving on the screen, is less than our player's x value on the screen, then make players dot x value smaller by 5 pixels. So we want our player to move to the left. And remember that the 0 value for x is on the left-hand side, so I need to subtract 5 pixels from my player's location so he'll move left. Let's go ahead and test this code, so I'll save it. And when I move it to the right, of course, he's not doing anything yet because I haven't programmed it to do anything when it's to the right of the player. Alright, so now I'd like to program some logic to have my character respond when the mouse is moving to the right of him. So I'll do the same kind of logic here, so I can copy and paste this code if I wanted to. Control C and then Control V. And now I can say if the e.stagex variable is greater than or equal to my player's .x variable, meaning I'm moving my mouse to the right of my player, then I will add 5 pixels to my player.x's value, hence making him move to the right. So I can save this and run it and test it. When I move my mouse to the right, my character moves right. And when I move my mouse to the left, that mouse move event calls that function on mouse move. And since my mouse is to the right or to the left of my player, my if statements are true. When it's to the left, it subtracts 5 pixels, and when it's to the right, it adds 5 pixels to his x value. So get your player to move, and in the next video we will make some more enemies for our player to avoid.